Imagine being stranded on the side of a desolate highway, with no one stopping to help, and then, out of nowhere, one of the world's most famous actors pulls over. What happens next will blow your mind. Asterisk. It was a quiet Tuesday evening on the outskirts of Los Angeles. The sun had dipped below the horizon, leaving the sky painted in hues of orange and purple. Cars sped past on the highway, their headlights piercing through the growing darkness. For most drivers, it was just another commute, an ordinary journey back home after a long day. But for one young woman named Emily Carter, it was anything but ordinary. Emily, a 28-year-old freelance graphic designer, was heading home after visiting her parents in Pasadena. She was driving her trusty old sedan, a car that had seen better days but had always been reliable, until tonight. As she merged onto the highway, she noticed her engine sputtering. The car started to shake violently, and the dashboard lit up with warning signs. Panic set in as she realized she had no choice but to pull over onto the shoulder of the road. The sound of cars whizzing by was deafening as Emily sat in her car, trying to calm herself. She fumbled for her phone to call roadside assistance, but to her dismay, her battery was dead. With no charger and no immediate help in sight, she was stranded. Emily stepped out of her car, waving frantically at passing vehicles. Her heart sank as car after car sped past without even slowing down. She felt invisible, just another stranded driver on the side of the road, ignored by the world. But then, something unusual happened. A sleek black motorcycle zipped by, its rider glancing in her direction. Emily thought nothing of it. After all, who would stop for a stranger on a busy highway? Yet, moments later, she heard the roar of the motorcycle's engine growing louder again. The rider had turned around. As the motorcycle pulled up behind her car, Emily's first reaction was a mix of relief and caution. The rider dismounted, pulling off their helmet to reveal a man with long, jet-black hair and an unmistakable presence. For a moment, Emily froze. She recognized that face, the rugged jawline, the piercing eyes. It was Keanu Reeves. But how could this be real? She blinked, convinced her mind was playing tricks on her. Yet there he was, standing just a few feet away, dressed in a black leather jacket and jeans. "Hey, you okay?" Keanu's voice was calm and reassuring, a stark contrast to the chaos Emily felt inside. Unable to form coherent words, Emily stammered, my car it broke down and I don't know what to do." Keanu offered a kind smile. "Let's see what we can do about that," he said, walking over to her car. What followed was a moment that felt surreal to Emily. One of the biggest movie stars in the world was examining her beat-up sedan, genuinely trying to help. As he checked under the hood, he asked her a few questions about what had happened. His demeanor was humble, almost as if he wasn't aware of his own fame. Emily watched in awe as Keanu tinkered with the car, his hands getting dirty in the process. "It looks like your alternator's gone," he finally said, brushing his hands on his jeans. "We're not getting this thing started tonight." Panic flickered in Emily's eyes. "I don't know what to do," she admitted. Keanu nodded thoughtfully. "Do you have anyone you can call?" "My phone's dead," she said, her voice trembling. Without missing a beat, Keanu reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone. "Here," he said, handing it to her. "Call whoever you need." Emily hesitated. It was all so overwhelming. The situation, the kindness, and the fact that Keanu Reeves, of all people, was standing right there. She made the call to her dad, who promised to come as soon as possible, though he was over an hour away. When Emily hung up, she expected Keanu to say his goodbyes and be on his way. After all, he had done more than enough. But instead, he looked at her and said, "I'll wait with you until your dad gets here. It's not safe for you to be out here alone." Those words hit Emily like a ton of bricks. In a world where most people wouldn't even stop, here was a Hollywood superstar willing to stay and ensure her safety. As they waited, Keanu sat on the guardrail, chatting with Emily as if they were old friends. He asked her about her work, her family, and even joked about his own less-than-perfect driving skills. The tension Emily had felt earlier began to melt away, replaced by a sense of comfort she hadn't expected to find in such a situation. At one point, a passing car slowed down, its driver doing a double-take before shouting, Is that Keanu Reeves? Keanu simply waved with a sheepish grin, brushing off the attention as if it were no big deal. But for Emily, it was a big deal. Not just because of who he was, but because of what he represented in that moment. A reminder that even in the most unexpected circumstances, kindness could shine through. When Emily's dad finally arrived, he was just as stunned as she had been. Keanu shook his hand, exchanged a few pleasantries, and made sure they had everything they needed before finally getting back on his motorcycle. As he rode off into the night, Emily stood there, still trying to process what had just happened. She knew this was a story she'd be telling for the rest of her life. A story about the night Keanu Reeves stopped for a stranded driver and reminded her that good people still exist. But what Emily didn't realize was that this wasn't just a story about her. It was a story that would touch countless others once it got out, sparking conversations about the power of kindness and the unexpected ways it can appear. The night seemed to stretch on forever, yet Emily couldn't shake the feeling that something extraordinary had just happened. As her dad drove her home, they barely spoke. Emily was lost in her thoughts, replaying the events of the evening over and over in her mind. How had Keanu Reeves ended up on that highway at the exact moment she needed help? It almost felt like destiny. As the car turned into her driveway, her dad glanced over at her. "Are you okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Emily laughed softly, still in disbelief. I can't believe it. I mean, of all the people to pull over, it was him." Her dad raised an eyebrow. "Keanu Reeves?" "Yeah, the actor. He helped me with my car. He stayed with me until you got here." Emily said the words slowly, as if testing them to see if they made sense. Her dad was silent for a moment before responding. "Well, that's pretty wild. But hey, you're home safe, and that's what matters." But Emily couldn't stop thinking about the way Keanu had acted. Not like a celebrity, but like a real person, someone who genuinely cared. And as she lay in bed that night, her mind kept drifting back to that moment, wondering if it was a sign of something more. Little did she know, her story wasn't over. The next morning, Emily's phone buzzed with a notification. She rubbed her eyes, still half asleep, and picked up her phone. It was a news article, but not one she expected to see. The headline read, Keanu Reeves saves stranded driver on highway. Gives new meaning to kindness of strangers. Her heart skipped a beat. She opened the article, scrolling through the words that detailed the event of the night before. The piece described how Keanu had stopped to help a woman whose car had broken down, mentioning that he had even stayed with her until her father arrived. The story was already going viral, with people across the country sharing it on social media. But what shocked her the most was the statement at the end of the article. Keanu Reeves, known for his generosity and down-to-earth nature, has once again proven that no matter how famous you are, kindness never goes out of style. Emily sat there, staring at the screen. She couldn't believe it. Keanu's act of kindness had touched so many people already. But as she read the article over and over, another thought began to gnaw at her. What if this was only the beginning? For days, the story of Keanu stopping for the stranded driver continued to gain traction. Social media exploded with people praising his actions, with many sharing their own stories of kindness. Some speculated about the deeper meaning behind it all. Could this be a sign that the world needed more kindness, or was it simply a reminder that sometimes the smallest gestures can have the biggest impact? Emily began to feel like she was a part of something bigger, like she had unknowingly become part of a movement that was changing the way people viewed kindness and celebrity. But not everyone saw it that way. As the story spread, so did the scrutiny. People began to question the motives behind such an act. Was Keanu just trying to boost his public image? Was this just another staged moment for the cameras? It didn't take long for conspiracy theories to take root. Some internet users speculated that the entire incident had been planned. How could Keanu Reeves just happen to be on the same highway at the same time? One user posted, "Seems fishy to me." Another theory suggested that Keanu was secretly filming a documentary about kindness, and this was just a carefully orchestrated scene. "I bet this was all part of a bigger project," someone commented. "The man doesn't do anything without a purpose." Emily was stunned when she saw these posts. She hadn't expected the kindness of the moment to be met with suspicion. She couldn't wrap her head around the idea that people would try to twist what had been a simple act of generosity into something sinister. As the days went on, the debate grew. Some people defended Keanu, calling out the negativity and reminding others that not everything had an ulterior motive. Others insisted that there was more to the story than met the eye. For Emily, it felt like the story was slipping out of her hands, like the act of kindness that had felt so personal was now being dissected and analyzed by the world. The more she saw, the more uncertain she became. Was this kindness? Or was it a carefully constructed image? One evening, as Emily was scrolling through social media, she came across a post from Keanu himself. It was a simple message, posted to his Instagram account. Kindness is not for show. It's not about what others think of you. It's about doing what you can, when you can, for those in need. We all need each other. Keanu. The words hit her like a wave, washing away all her doubts. She realized that it didn't matter what anyone else thought. What mattered was the way Keanu had acted in that moment. What mattered was that he had stopped. And in that moment, Emily understood something crucial. Kindness was never about proving something to the world. It was about showing up when it mattered most, no matter who you were. As the story continued to unfold, Emily found herself caught between the praise and the criticism. She couldn't change people's opinions, but she could hold on to her own truth. Keanu had been there for her when no one else had, and that was enough. But then, just as things seemed to settle, something happened that would change everything. Just when Emily thought the whirlwind surrounding Keanu's act of kindness had finally settled down, something happened that none of them could have expected. It started with a tweet. A well-known news outlet had posted an article titled Keanu Reeves' roadside kindness sparks controversy. Fans demand proof. The tweet accompanying the article had a question that caught Emily off guard. Did Keanu Reeves really stop to help a stranded driver? Or was this just another well-orchestrated publicity stunt? The backlash was swift and severe. Some people who had once celebrated Keanu's kindness began to turn on him, their trust now replaced with skepticism. They accused him of using his good deeds to manipulate the public's perception of him. Why else would he post a message about kindness right after the incident? One person argued, "It all feels too convenient." Others questioned Emily's involvement, wondering if she was somehow complicit in a staged act. Was she really stranded? Or was this all a publicity stunt set up to highlight Keanu's image as a humble, selfless star? The questions and doubts kept coming, each one more cutting than the last. Emily, who had once felt proud to have had Keanu's support, now found herself thrust into a storm of online conspiracy theories. She didn't know what to believe anymore. Had she been part of something bigger than she understood? Or was it all just a coincidence? A random act of kindness that was now being twisted into something far more sinister? The tension escalated. The more Emily read, the more she felt suffocated by the scrutiny. Was she being used as a pawn in a larger game? Was Keanu truly the good guy he appeared to be? Or was there something darker beneath the surface? Her mind raced, and her once clear memories of that night became clouded with doubt. Then came the phone call. It was from Keanu himself. "Emily." His voice was calm and steady on the other end. "I saw the online reactions. I wanted to reach out and make sure you're okay." Emily was silent for a moment, unsure how to respond. She wanted to believe in him, but the weight of the accusations was overwhelming. "I don't know anymore," she confessed, her voice trembling. "All these people are saying it was staged, and I'm starting to wonder if they're right." There was a pause before Keanu spoke again. "I understand. People love to jump to conclusions. But you know what really matters? The truth." His words hit her like a jolt of electricity. She had spent days questioning everything about that night, everything about him. And yet, in that one phone call, the fog began to lift. "I didn't stop that night because I wanted people to praise me," Keanu continued. "I stopped because it was the right thing to do. There was a woman in need, and that was enough. I didn't plan it. I didn't want attention. I just wanted to help." Emily felt a lump form in her throat. She had heard those words before, but now, hearing them from him directly, they carried a weight she couldn't ignore. She had seen the kindness in his actions, and no amount of online chatter could take that away from her. "Thank you," she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you for not giving up on me." Keanu's voice softened. "You don't have to thank me, Emily. You just have to believe in the goodness of people and in your own truth." And just like that, the tension that had been building for days started to dissipate. Emily knew what she had to do. Later that evening, she posted something on her own social media accounts, a simple message. Asterisk, "I know there are a lot of people questioning what happened the other night. Some of you may have doubts, and that's okay. But I can tell you this. I was stranded, and Keanu stopped to help. He didn't have to. He did it because he's a good person. Don't let anyone convince you otherwise." Asterisk. The post spread like wildfire. It wasn't long before Keanu himself shared it on his social media with a simple caption. Asterisk, "Kindness speaks for itself." Asterisk. The floodgates opened. For the first time in days, the narrative began to shift. People stopped questioning the incident and started to reflect on what it really meant. Keanu's fans came to his defense, but more importantly, the focus shifted away from speculation and back to the core message of the story, the power of a single act of kindness. And as Emily watched everything unfold, she realized that the story was never really about the doubts or the controversies. It was about the connection that had been forged between two strangers in the midst of uncertainty. It was about the way one person's actions could inspire others to be better, to do better. Keanu had been there for her when no one else had, and in return, she was now able to share that kindness with the world. The conversation moved from whether or not the act was staged to how we could all do more to help others when they need it most. It wasn't about fame. It wasn't about publicity. It was about making a choice in that one pivotal moment to be kind. And in the end, that was the real story. As the days passed, Emily felt a profound shift inside herself. The storm of speculation had died down, but the impact of that night, of Keanu's act of kindness, had left an indelible mark on her. The world had moved on, as it often did, but Emily couldn't shake the feeling that she was forever changed. Her social media had exploded in the aftermath of her post. People from all walks of life reached out to thank her for sharing her story, for reminding them of the importance of kindness. She received messages from strangers who had been inspired to do something kind for others, no matter how small. The flood of positivity was overwhelming, and yet, it filled her heart in a way she hadn't expected. She began to look at the world through a different lens. The cynicism that had clouded her perspective for so long began to fade. Keanu's actions had opened her eyes to the power of vulnerability and the importance of showing up for people, even when it wasn't convenient, even when it didn't promise any reward. But as much as the world had shifted for her, she knew that there was still something deeper at play. The doubts, the theories, the skepticism, they had all taught her one important lesson. Kindness, in its purest form, was rarely about recognition. It was about creating ripples in the world, little acts that, once set in motion, could grow into something much larger. Emily was no longer just a bystander in her own life. She had become part of something that was greater than herself. She had become part of a movement that reminded people that no act of kindness, no matter how small, ever goes unnoticed. One evening, as Emily sat in her living room, scrolling through the comments on her post once again, a notification popped up. It was from Keanu. Asterisk, "I saw this message. You've been a part of something special, Emily. I'm grateful for you." Asterisk. Tears welled up in her eyes as she read the words. She had never expected a message like that. It wasn't just about the car breakdown anymore. It was about everything that had followed. The way they had both allowed a simple moment to transform into something larger than themselves. The next day, Emily was walking through her neighborhood when she saw a woman struggling with a flat tire. She had no hesitation. Without thinking, Emily pulled out her phone to call roadside assistance, but then remembered that it might take a while for them to arrive. The woman, a mother of two, was alone and visibly stressed. In that moment, Emily's heart pulled her in a direction she hadn't planned on. She walked over and offered to help. It wasn't the most glamorous or easy task. She had no idea how to change a tire herself, but something inside her urged her to try. As she worked alongside the woman, Emily realized that this was her chance to pay it forward. The kindness that Keanu had shown her had been contagious, and now she was passing it on. By the time they finished, The woman was smiling, and the two exchanged numbers, promising to keep in touch. That evening, as Emily sat at her kitchen table, she reflected on everything that had transpired since that night. The world had, in some ways, been fractured by the skepticism and doubt that followed the story of her encounter with Keanu. But in her heart, she knew the truth. Kindness wasn't something to be questioned. It was a force that needed no validation. What had started as a moment of uncertainty, both for her and for Keanu, had now become a catalyst for change. The world was still full of doubt, of judgment, of people ready to pick apart even the most beautiful moments. But Emily had come to realize that no matter what people said or believed, the essence of that night would remain untouched. Keanu's actions had been an invitation to live differently, to choose kindness, not because it would make you popular, but because it was the right thing to do. And now, Emily was living that truth. She didn't need to prove anything to anyone. The small acts of kindness she performed were enough. Every time she offered a smile to a stranger or helped someone in need, she knew she was part of something bigger, a ripple effect that, like a stone dropped into a pond, would continue to spread. As the weeks passed, the buzz around the story faded into the background. The controversy was forgotten, but the lessons it taught remained. People didn't need to believe in the story for it to matter. The real story was about the shift in perspective that followed. It was about seeing the world through the lens of empathy and understanding, about choosing to help whenever you could, regardless of who was watching. In the end, Emily realized that the greatest gift Keanu had given her wasn't just his kindness. It was the reminder that sometimes, the simplest actions could change everything. The story had come full circle. Emily's journey had transformed her, and it had inspired thousands. Keanu's simple act of kindness had sparked a movement, but the true power lay in the everyday choices we all make. It wasn't about becoming a hero or going viral. It was about choosing kindness whenever and wherever we could, in small ways that may never make the headlines. Now it's your turn. What if we all did this? What if, every time we saw someone in need, we stopped and helped, no matter how small or inconvenient? Imagine the ripple effect. A single act of kindness could change someone's day, or even their life. Here's the challenge. Next time you see someone struggling, offer help. Whether it's holding the door for a stranger or helping a neighbor carry groceries, make kindness your instinct. Don't just watch the story, be part of it. Share your own acts of kindness in the comments below. Let's keep the momentum going and show that kindness can change the world. Because kindness is contagious.